You could use anything, right? Just something, you know, a bridal veil would be fine. Just something to dapple the sunlight, right? So that it's not blasting. You think at any one point, the sun's always moving, at any one point in time. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and it's like the first week of June, and it's been very hot and very sunny. And I got some tomatoes here that I just stuck in the ground a few days ago. So I don't normally do transplants indoors, but this year I decided to do a couple. I did like just a handful. I got one window that's got enough room for like 6 plants. That's it. So I found a way to do that wasn't too, distasteful. But all I did when I stuck, so I hardened these off on my deck, gradually, every day I'd put them out for a couple hours, a little bit longer, that sort of thing, starting with foggy days. But when I put these out, the sun was so intense. If you've ever had that experience where you spend, you start in late March or early April growing your transplants indoors, loving them, caring for them, bringing them along, and then you plant them in the garden and they either die because they look like they've been microwaved, because they kind of have, or they're set back so badly that it takes them, they're really never quite the same, where they spend 2 weeks just recovering to being moved outdoors. A really simple trick is to just, I'm using spruce boughs here, but you could, because I've got trees everywhere, but you could use anything, right? Just something, a bridal veil would be fine. Just something to dapple the sunlight, right? So that it's not blasting. You think at any one point, the sun's always moving, at any one point in time there's some holes here, and there's sun getting through those holes from a given angle, and then an hour later the sun's coming through the holes at another angle. So no one location on the leaves of the plants is getting full sun all the time. It's sort of getting dots of sun, right? And by virtue of that process, it's got some time to recuperate. So yesterday it was almost 30 Celsius, which is, for people that are living in places that are hot, they're like, yeah, well, big deal, right? But for here, that's a huge jump in temperature. And right up until last week, we were having risks of frost at night, and 5 Celsius overnight and that sort of thing. So last couple of days have been totally different, very warm. Yeah, when you're moving plants out into a situation like that, it can really put them at risk of just getting too much sun when they still can't deal with it, right? They're not used to dealing, if they've been started indoors, especially if they're grown under artificial lights. It's always better to have real sun in a window, sort of thing. But even when they're in real sun in a window, they're not getting it directly. It's at an angle. It's not overhead, right? It depends on your setup, I suppose. But anyway, suffice it to say, when you're moving your plants out into your garden, even if you've hardened them off, these are ones you've started indoors, it's always touch and go getting them started. So a simple way is to just, do something like this, where you're just you're still letting the sun through, you're partially shielding them. I'm going to leave them like this for a couple days. I just stuck these in the ground a couple days ago. And the first overcast day we get, I'll take these off and leave them off for the rest of the year, right? This way the roots can just get accustomed to the soil here, and they can adapt. There's another trick I used over here. I don't know if it'll work as well, but I thought I'd just share it with you. This is more of an experiment. So this I know will work, because I've done it with lots of different plants, lots of different times. But here I've got, over here, I've got a garlic garden. And I don't know if you can tell or how well that comes across on camera. Let's go in. But there's a tomato in there. So I stuck the tomato, right? Tomato, right? So I stuck the tomato inside the garlic forest, right? So I figured that'll dapple the sun somewhat as well. That was just an experiment. Now, the drawback is that this garlic is also competing for sunlight. It doesn't shade it out the way potatoes would, or some really leafy plants like squash. But, these ones, once I remove the spruce boughs, will be getting full sun. So my guess is that these ones will, well, when they're side by side, so it's easy to do the comparison. I predict these ones will outgrow these ones, because this garlic's going to be here until August, right? So it's going to be at some level. I mean, this isn't like this is like almost like a pergola. It's like a tomato pergola. It's dappling the sun the same way a pergola would, in a sense, right? I predict these won't grow as well, but they're still getting sun, that's for sure. And I mean, they've been out here in this, getting blasted with sun for 3 days. And you know, if it had been too much too soon, we'd be seeing the effects already. So it totally works, or it seems to work. Or it could just be the case that I did an excellent job hardening these off. So yeah, if you've been coaxing your tomatoes along indoors and you want to move them outside, and let's say you're past all risk of frost, so you haven't got that problem, but you're worried about them getting too much sun too fast, concerned, you've got that anxiety, did I harden them off properly? I'm always worried about that, and I'm notoriously bad at hardening off my tomatoes, because when it comes to growing transplants, I'm a lethal combination of lazy and impatient when it comes to the hardening off process. You have to be very diligent, very scheduled, very organized in how you do it. And you know, if you watch my gardening channel regularly, I do have a large garden, but I sort of have it set up in such a way that the plants really take care of themselves, don't involve a lot of, you know, micromanaging on my part. That's the way I like it to be. But I figured I could handle the commitment of 6 tomato plants. These are cherry tomato plants. I think they're called Cherry Falls. I tried planting them outdoors, just direct seeded last year. Didn't work, so I thought I'd baby them along this year indoors. No. Yeah, I hope that found that interesting. If you're concerned about things being out too soon, too hot, too much, too fast, just find a way to block, you know, just block some of that sun, dapple the sun. And that will probably solve that problem and get that plant through the process of adapting to being outdoors full-time in full sun. So hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.